Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today I've got another build for you, and this one is the Ice Crowstorm build. This is based on doing as much damage as possible with Crowstorm, which is the active ability for the crows. You can proc it two ways, by manually using it, which will also teleport you, and by using swipe on a cooldown, which in this with cooldown reduction we have it down to 1.3 seconds. Now this is an online build, however it is in legacy mode. It's from the last patch that we were playing. However, I've updated it because now with Tempest Strike, you have the Gladiator of Lagan buff that you get. You can get up to 24 stacks of that, and each stack gives our crows up to 8 spell damage, 16 if you have more than 50 int, and we have 50 int in this build. Our gear's not totally min-maxed. We can also get flat spell damage on our weapons, which we do not have in this build, so the damage can get even higher. However, with the current setup, when you're at 20 plus stacks of the Gladiator of Lagan, which you can do easily against bosses when you're just spamming Tempest Strike, because you can attack so fast with it now as it scales with attack speed, it allows you to hit for the millions of damage. Against the training dummies, we have broken the 3 million damage barrier, and again you can have that going off almost every second, which is really nice, which means it's a ton of damage. It allows you to take care of single targets and bossing extremely easily, and then for clearing through monos you just let the birds basically attack all the trash mobs, again hitting whenever you can with Tempest Strike so that you can get those stats of Gladiator of Lagan. But let's go ahead and get into the skills, the passives, and exactly how this build works. For skills, I'm running Swipe, Summon Storm Crows, Warcry, Tempest Strike, and Summon Wolf. For Swipe, we have this set up to have the cooldown also so it procs your minion's active ability. That's how we're getting the Crowstorm to come down every 1.3 seconds thanks to cooldown reduction that we have on the build. So for it, we've got 2 points in Blood Beast, 1 point in Rending, and 3 points in Duality of Nature, so that you get a little bit of health back. You don't need it. You can of course move these points to anywhere else that you want, but for us, just some extra health for a little extra leech and everything to keep our health full. We have 5 points away of the hunt for leech and damage, 5 points when gearing reach for damage and area so that it's harder to miss the enemies, especially in melee range, 2 points in culling for that kill threshold, which is nice against bosses, 1 point in Claw of the Bear, which gives it a 2-second cooldown, and with 1 point in Primal Resonance, the nearest companion now does its ability when we do a hit with this. It also restores the nearest companion to 100% health, which is really nice to keep your Storm Crows alive. Now again, we have cooldown on most of our gear, so we have it down to 1.3 seconds, which means every 1.3 seconds you can spam the Crowstorm, which is going to be your crow's ability. And then that'll sum it up for that skill. For Summon Storm Crows, we have +9 levels to this. A lot of that is coming from the weapons we have, as well as the health. The Wolf Helm now gives you +2 minion ability levels as well, so that gives us a bunch of extra points. So for Summon Storm Crows, we have this set up to get as much damage with Crowstorm, and to also boost its damage with our melee hits, since we'll be using both Swipe and Tempest Strike. So we've got 2 points in Shocking Display, 1 point in Frigid Wings so that we convert them to cold. We convert them to cold so that the Apogee swords that we have give +3 levels to cold and necrotic skills. This way it'll get +3 from the cold, which is really nice. That gives us a bunch of extra points to play with. We have 3 points in Thundering Strike for the Crowstorm to do 120% more damage. 1 point in Sky Passage makes it a traversal skill, so we can now teleport with it, which is nice. 1 point in Expansive Pulse for the Crowstorm area. 2 points in Thunderous Blast for extra Crowstorm damage per crow, and we have 6 crows, so this is 180% more damage, which is why we get as many crows as possible, which I'll explain. That's why we're into Summon Wolf and why we're wearing the Wolf Helm. We also have 2 points in Storm Breath for that extra damage per shock stance, and this gives us up to 60% more damage, which against bosses is really helpful. 2 points in Shatterbolt, 2 points in Pincers, 2 points in Observe and Learn so that our melee attacks, we do have a 20% chance to give our crows 8% more base crit chance per stack. And with this you can get 2-3 stacks really easily, so your crows will get to 100% crit chance against bosses, which really helps you get their health down much faster. 2 points in Avis, 1 point in Nimbleness, 2 points in Shredding Beaks, 4 points in Huntsman so that you get 60% more damage. You can have up to 3 stacks of this. Again, since we're doing melee attacks, we have a 20% chance on every one of them to gain a stack of this. It lasts for 10 seconds, so it does give you some room to get those 3 stacks up. And again, that's 180% more damage for them, which is huge. 1 point in Feathered Storm for that extra armor shred, chance and effect per strength, because you do have quite a bit of strength on the build. And then Murder of Crows gives us damage damage per crow. With 6 crows, we're getting 24% more damage per point put in here. Again, if we had more points, we'd have even more damage. We would build into more Murder of the Crows, and then of course getting extra area with that Crowstorm also helps you just kind of annihilate the whole field at once. For Warcry, we have this set up because we have cold minions, so we're going to give them a bunch of crit chance as well as increased damage. On top of that, make ourselves invulnerable. It also heals us, which is really nice. If you want, because we no longer worry about the cooldown of Swipe and we're actually using Tempest Strike to attack very, very fast, you can build into Berserker if you want. However, I didn't go with it in this setup. We got 1 point in Juggernaut for that invulnerability. Again, this goes off every 3.3 seconds. I have it on autocast. That means we're invulnerable for almost 33% of the time. 3 points in Breath of Eterra, so it's constantly healing us. This scales with your healing effectiveness, which is nice. 1 point in Staggering War, 1 point in Kinetic Scream, 2 points in Eviscerating Howl, and then 1 point in Shell Breath, so that it goes off every 50, or has 50% cooldown, so we can get it twice as often. This is really nice, especially since it has a 10-second cooldown by default, so this will get you down to 5, and then with cooldown reduction you get under that. That's how we got down to our 3.3. And then we have 2 points in Deep War, 4 points in Battle Cry, so that all the allies near us, as well as us, will get a 100% increased crit chance, which is really nice. 1 point in Wrath here turns it into Cold Skill. 3 points in Frostclaw gives 150% increased cold damage to us and our allies, which will really boost the damage of your crows. And then another point in Bringer of Winter is another 100% crit chance. So because our crows are cold, they get 150% increased damage as well as 200% increased crit chance. With all the base we're giving them from our melee attacks, this gets them to 100% crit really, really fast. And of course, this lasts for 4 seconds and our cooldown is under that, so you can have 100% uptime of these buffs. Then for Tempest Strike, the main things that you just want is these Gladiators of Lagan. Each one of these is going to give +4 spell damage to your crows, as well to yourself, but you're not doing spell damage to the crows. This will last for 8 seconds, and you can get up to 3 stacks of this per second. So over 8 seconds, that means you can technically have 24 stacks, although I rarely see getting above 20, 21. That's kind of the max when I'm constantly attacking. And then with 1 point in Lagonian Shamanism, as well as 1 point in Sheme of the Architect, that is doubled with every stack. So with this, because we have crows, we have 50 int, it's 100% effect, which means we actually get 8 flat damage. So with 21 stacks, or up to 24 stacks, you get 24 times 8, which comes out at around 192 spell damage for your crows, which is absolutely insane, having almost 200 flat through the skill, and really helps you take those single targets down fast. For everything else, we just wanted to increase the attack speed, the area of hit, and reduce the cost. So we got 4 points in Ancestral Swiftness for that attack speed, as well as reduced mana cost. 4 points in Force here gives us increased area. 2 points in Firm Grip for even more area. And then we get rid of all of the Tempest, so 1 point in Warm Shelter, 1 point in Calm Seas, and 1 point in Grounded Refuge, so that we get 60% increased attack speed and -12 mana cost. So it's a free skill to use, and with 1 point in Resurgence of Land, we get 5 mana back on hit. So you can actually convert it to a mana generator. And again, you can then switch some points around and build into the base spell damage having increased damage, but it will consume mana. Since you're constantly using your Tempest Strike and getting mana back, you can technically build that way, but you may run into some mana issues. I just like it so I don't have mana issues using Warcry and our Totem all the time. And then for Summon Wolf, the only thing that matters in here is getting to Pack Hunters. You can put the rest of the points wherever you want, but you want this +1 maximum companion so you can have 6 crows instead of 5. That's it. We don't summon him, we don't do anything with him. You just want to make sure you have 1 point here in Pack Hunters. Then for our passive points, for the Primalist, we got 25 points in here, with 6 of them in Gift of the Wilderness, 1 point in Natural Attunement, 1 point in Harmony of Blades so we can dual wield, 5 points in Hunter's Restoration, 6 points in Wisdom of the Wild, 1 point in Hunter's Emanation, and 5 points in Berserker for all of that less damage taken at low life. Of course, at low life we'll also do more melee damage, but our damage isn't really what's doing the most of it, it's really for that less damage taken. We got 11 points in the Shaman, with 8 points in Silent Protector, because we always have a totem out, and 3 points in Teutonic Fury gives us increased attack speed as well, once that Frenzy totem we have out is out. In Druid, we have 7 points, with all 7 in Plating here for the Endurance and Flat Armor, and then 69 points in the Beastmaster, with 8 points in Ursane Strength, 4 points in Boarheart, 3 points in Call of the Pact, 5 in Constitution, 6 in the Chase, 5 in Boarheart, so that we can try and have boar heart or aspect of the boar up all the time for that damage reduction. It gives you up to 30% DR, which is nice. 8 points in Life of the Wilderness for all that vitality, as well as endurance threshold. This also applies to your companions, which will help them survive. 10 points in shelter for that endurance threshold and physical resist. 1 point to have another maximum companion here in embrace. And then the aspect of the link, so we go full out. And because every time you use swipe or every time you manually proc Crowstorm, you're going to proc aspect of the link, so you can have 100% uptime of this. This is going to give increased critical strike chance. It gives you and your minions, in our case crows, 100% increased critical strike chance as well as stun chance. With 6 points in Serrated Claws, it also gives them critical strike multiplier, and when that links is up, another 60% multiplier, so they actually have 120% increased critical strike multiplier, which really helps those crits hit much harder. And 5 points in critical bite is what's going to keep them alive. Every time they do a crit, especially when you get them to 100% crit, means 15% of all that damage they're doing, they're leeching. This is what really keeps them alive, especially against bosses, because when you have that 100% crit, even if they take a hit that is 99% of their life, they're going to get it back in about 1 second, or after just one Stormcrow hit, because it hits so hard. For the character sheet, as you can see here, I'm still working on capping out my resist, but again, we've done all the content in the game with this build. It is easy enough to do because you have a lot of DR from different sources like Boar and you're saying Strength and then Berserker. On top of that, we have some armor, and then for defense, you want to get that critical strike avoidance capped. Mine's not right now because I wanted to get the 50 int. I could definitely swap some gear around and get that back, but I'm very close to rolling it. We do have capped out endurance, which you definitely do want. And then again, 50 int is where it's going to double the damage of the Stormcrows essentially from those Gladiator of Lagan stacks. Not needed, but really does boost the damage a ton. I sacrificed the CSA for now, but if I want to go higher in corruption, you're definitely going to want to cap out this and your resist. Although again, wasn't my primary focus at this point. And then for our gear, there are 3 uniques, well 2 uniques being used, but 2 of the same one. The Apogee of the Frozen Light is going to be really good, and on these, I have increased melee attack speed, but on swords, you can actually roll flat spell damage for minions. Getting that on both swords can get you, I think tier 7 rolls max about 35, so you can actually get 70 flat spell damage for them. On top of that, on the helm, you can also get flat damage, which I think I have here, 18 spell damage for Stormcrows. This is only tier 6, so you can actually get up to 25, I think, at tier 7. So getting that, you can get up to 100 flat damage for them on the weapons. I don't have that, but if you had that, you'd be hitting for well over 5 million damage with this setup. Again, we have to continue farming to get those. For everything else, minion health, Stormcrow levels, just as much health, get your critical strike avoidance and everything else. And then again, it's very hard to get the int. To get the int you need, you are going to have tier 6/tier 7 affixes. I have tier 6 in almost every slot you can have it, which is both rings, the gloves, and the boots. And then both of the rings that I'm wearing are also the opal rings for those +2 all attributes, and we just come out at a perfect 50 with that. A tier 7 would help, but again, we're sacrificing kind of a lot having it in all of those slots. And then we just have our hybrid health lighters for everything else. You can get increased aspect of the Link's effect if you want. That'll help boost their damage even more, but health is the best for survivability in this build. And then for how to play the build, so all you have to do, or for what I do, is I have Warcry and Frenzy Totem on autocast, just always going off to make sure that I'm getting invulnerable as much as possible, increasing their damage as much as possible, and then with Frenzy Totem up, you get that attack speed as well as armor, which is really nice. And then all you have to do is go in and attack as much as you can. You can see that with Tempest Strike, now that it scales with attack speed scaling, you can hit as fast as you want, and you can see I'm up to 21 stacks of Gladiator of Lagan whenever we're attacking targets. Every time you use a swipe, it's going to call down their ability. You can see here it's hitting for we're hitting for 3.7 million on some of these hits, which is ridiculous. And then of course, if you want to teleport, you can use their actual ability and that'll teleport you wherever you need. And then between the two, you can use both one after another, and you can see you can get back-to-back hits for that super huge damage, which is absolutely crazy. And then you just keep swiping away, and you will wither down the life of any enemy extremely fast. But that's all you have to do. And it's really as simple as that. They hit super hard with that Crowstorm ability, which is really nice. So you just keep going from mob to mob using Tempest Strike and swipe, teleporting when you need to with Crowstorm, and let the crows just do all of the damage. And that'll be it for this build guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.